Hey, friends and fans, welcome to the Magic of Music. My name is John Lerack, and today we're talking about music notation. Music notation, way back when, like hundreds of years ago, looks much different than it does today. If we look at some of these images, most musicians, or especially anyone who's not a musician, would look at that and go, "What? What does that mean?" So, over the centuries, we gradually changed how music was notated to make it a little more understandable, to make it a little bit easier for us to figure out. And eventually we came up with what today is called the musical staff. And we have this blank staff, but then to understand these lines and spaces, because you look and you see you have 5 lines and 4 spaces, and that's a musical staff. So that could make, what, 9 notes? But there are a lot more notes that instruments can play than just those 9. So how do we put down on that paper, on that staff, what we want you to play? As music notation developed, we eventually came along with not only the staff, but what we call clef signs. And what clef signs do is help us identify specific pitches on the lines and spaces or the staff that are to be played or sung. Here are 4 common clef signs that we see: the treble clef, the alto clef, the tenor clef, and the bass clef. However, the 2 most common are the treble and the bass. And today we're going to take a look at that treble clef. Of all the clefs, the treble clef is the most common, and it's used by many instruments, including things like the violin, the flute, the trumpet, the clarinet, saxophones, and many other things. As a piano player, I have to read both the treble and the bass clef at the same time, and the space in between those staffs, which I haven't shown you yet, is the middle, where we call middle C on the piano. So as we look at the following treble clef staff and we identify the notes, note that the G that's first identified is the G that's right above middle C on the piano. It's that specific G and no other. And so therefore the notes below and above it revolve around where that note is placed. The most common of all our clef signs is the treble clef, also known as the G clef. And it's called that because if we count these lines, we have our 5 lines and our 4 spaces in between. And if you notice how this symbol curves up and around, it goes around this line right here more than any other line. This goes right through the center of that, and that's why it's called the G clef. So, and that is the line that we identify as G, but we also use that as a point of reference for finding the other notes. If we know our musical alphabet, we know that our next note after G is not H, but it's A. We start back there. Then we have B, C, D, E, F. And if we come back down to G and go backwards, we have F, E, and D. And we can continue on, but that's the story of the G clef. So that's one way to figure out how to use the treble clef or the G clef. You know where that G is and you can go from there. Oftentimes when learning how to read music, we come up with other fun little tools. I've had students in the past say, "Do I have to know this?" It's like, no, you don't have to know this tool, but you do need to know the names of the lines and the spaces on the treble clef staff. So some things we do is we show, if we take just the lines and we have E, G, B, D, F, we can come up with an acronym for that. And the most common one is "Every Good Boy Does Fine." And you realize that each of the lines begins with the first letter of that word. Every good boy does fine. And in the spaces on the treble clef, they spell out the word face, F-A-C-E. So that's it for today's episode of The Magic of Music and the Magic of the Treble Clef. I will certainly explore other parts of music notation in other videos, but if you like this one, give it a big thumbs up down below, and I'll know you want to see other music notation videos. Also, please subscribe to my page, turn on notifications so that you'll know when a new video drops, and as always, please subscribe to my Facebook and Instagram pages under John Lerack Music. Thanks so much for watching.